Karina Gould has been a Liberal MP for nearly a decade now. She wants to rebuild the party and lead it into the next federal election. She's our guest in studio this morning. Welcome. Thanks for making the trek.
Thanks for having me.
From Burlington. Listen, you have said that Liberals have lost the trust of Canadians, that your party made mistakes when it came to the capital gains tax. You're talking about freezing the carbon tax.
Yeah.
You have admitted that you and your party did not listen to Canadians who were vocally opposed to these things. I wanted to ask you about that word trust in a relationship. If I am speaking and someone does not hear me, does not acknowledge what is important to me, and there's another person who does, that trust is broken. And it's like the Liberal Party didn't listen until people left.
Yeah.
So why should Canadians trust you, and by extension the Liberal Party, if they didn't listen the first time around? And there's somebody else who said, hey, I heard you, and this has been our action plan all along.
No, I think that's a really important point. And in democracy, trust is foundational. I mean, that's the whole basis of our system. And, you know, for me, as a politician over the last 10 years, something that's been really important has always been involved in the grassroots, always been involved in my community and listening to people. And I think that as the Liberal Party of Canada, A, we have to acknowledge that we got some things wrong. B, we have to say, we hear you. And then C, we have to demonstrate to Canadians that we're actually making those changes. And I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to regain the trust of Canadians as we move into the next election.
Well, fair point. But I don't know if you've ever had your heart broken, but it takes a while to rebuild trust. You guys don't have a lot of time. You're deciding a leader by March 9th. Parliament's back on March 27th. Can you do it in that short amount of time? Like, how are you going to win back years of broken trust in weeks?
I think there's a huge opportunity for the Liberal Party, but also for Canada right now. Look, what Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, this iteration of the party, is selling is not something that is positive or hopeful for Canadians. But I think what Canadians need more than anything right now is to know that their leaders are listening to them. They're going to have honest conversations. They're going to be authentic and real about what the challenges are, but also present solutions. And so I think there is an opportunity. I think there's a tremendous possibility for us as Liberals to actually hear Canadians and show them by the policy changes that we're going to make that we do hear them. There are things that we have done that were good. Childcare, Canada Child Benefit, a lot of the work that we've done on climate. I mean, the first Trump administration, we've done good things. But we also have to acknowledge, like you said, things like the carbon tax, capital gains tax increase, that those didn't work for Canadians. And so we need to be able to show that we hear them and that we're able to change.
You hear them now, but you heard them after they threatened to leave you and to pull their support for you. You brought up Mr. Poilievre, so I will too, in that he said, we heard it all along. And we always said to axe the tax. And people made fun of that slogan, but it has resonated with people. And so they were listening when you weren't. So why would Canadians trust you and not them?
Well, I think that part of that trust relationship is admitting your mistakes and being okay with that and saying, you know what, here's where we screwed up. Here's where we need to do better. And that's who I am. I'm not afraid to say that we didn't get some things right and to say to Canadians, I hear you. I understand what's going on. And actually, because I'm a mom of two, I live the same life that most of you live in terms of taking your kids to school and going to the grocery store, paying your mortgage, understanding that times are tough, and recognizing that it's not just enough to hold up a mirror of people's anger and reflect it back at them, but to actually absorb that and say, I get what you're going through, and here are the solutions that I'm offering, because you need someone that you can trust to actually make the changes that are going to improve your lives. And I got into politics not to be somebody, but to do things. And, you know, like the childcare agreements that we negotiated, actual real things that make a difference in people's lives.
You know, you've held several leadership positions since you've come into government, but there's a difference between a leadership role and being the leader. You said in your launch speech, Canada needs a leader with the confidence of the Liberal Party and the confidence of Canadians. So right now, if we add up the numbers, you have support from two MPs. Mark Carney, I believe, is in the 50s, and Chrystia Freeland has around 26. So if you don't have the support of your own colleagues, how are you going to lead them?
Well, because the support of the Liberal Party of Canada is actually from the membership. So it's great that my colleagues have decided that they're going to support one of the leadership candidates, but there are thousands of people across this country who are members, and it's one member, one vote. So a caucus vote is just as much as anybody else's. And one of the things that I love is when my caucus colleagues call me to say, I think you're great, I really like you, but I'm going to throw my weight behind someone else. They inevitably say, but don't worry, my dad is supporting you, or I was just at the hairdresser's and they're rooting for you. Ontario, and they name all of the people in their community who have said that they're supporting me. And one of the big differences between me and the other candidates is I'm not somebody who has a network of people with deep pockets. When I'm raising money and people are raising their hands, they're sending in an average donation of less than $200. Like, we are hearing from people across the country who have said, if it wasn't for me being in this leadership race, they would have sat this one out, because they want someone who's offering a hopeful vision for the future, who actually has a positive vision for Canada, but they know that can stand up to people who are trying to harm our country, either from south of the border or internally.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. So we know Chrystia Freeland already has experience with negotiations with the Trump administration. Mark Carney has his experience in finance. What are you going to do in the face of Trump tariffs, not just as leader of the Liberal Party, but as potentially leader of this country?
Yeah, well, look, we need a Team Canada approach. I mean, I think making sure that we are uniting people. And one of the things that I bring to the table as having been a government House leader, but also the Minister of Families and Minister of International Development over the last decade, is I know how to work with people of all different backgrounds, all different political persuasions to get things done.
Yeah.
You know, if we look at the child care agreements, for example, you know, I negotiated with a lot of conservative premiers on those, but we're able to get them done.
But they're not Donald Trump.
No, they're not Donald Trump, but some of them have very similar views, right? And, you know, one of the things that I do bring to the table is I'm able to have conversations and talk to people, even if they don't agree with me on the things that, you know, we see eye to eye on, and to deliver results for folks. And the other thing that I think is really important is that this is a huge opportunity for Canada to deal with our internal trade barriers, to actually have a unified country where we say, let's put our economy first. Let's talk about, you know, the different things that provinces and territories do and how we can actually come together. So again, it's a challenging time, but I see lots of opportunity. We just have to seize it.
Where do you see the opportunity? I think what Canadians are waiting to hear is what actually is this plan. Saturday's coming fast.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? You know, everything on the table. What does everything mean?
Well, everything on the table means that we have to look at where the United States depends on us most, and to say that that is where we're going to have the biggest impact. So whether that is electricity from Ontario, whether it is oil and gas from Alberta.
Would you support turning off the power?
If we have to, then I think that's something that we have to show Americans, that we are friends, we are allies, we are partners, and we don't want to be in this trade dispute. This is something that is coming from them. But if they do go forward, that Canada will come back very, very strong and demonstrate that they actually do rely on us. We should be so proud of who we are as Canadians and recognize that we offer so much to the Americans, and they do depend on us.
I think we're proud.
So we need to do that.
I think we're proud, but we're worried.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? But I think at this point in time, actually what we don't need to be is worried, because I know that we are smarter and we are better able to handle this than the Americans. And at the same time, what we also need to do is to make sure that we are protecting Canadian jobs and businesses to weather this storm, so that when we eventually win this trade dispute, which we will, because we are smarter and we are better able and better capable to do this, that we have the jobs and the businesses to come back to.
Liberal leadership candidate Karina Gould, thanks for coming in this morning. We appreciate having you here.
Thanks for having me.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.